First and foremost, for everybody that is in the meeting today, as well as for those that are watching the recording, thank you very much for tuning into this presentation. By means of quick introductions, there's two members from the Flowgear side of things that are on the call today. First and foremost, myself. My name is Logan McHugh. I'm one of the strategic account executives and U.S. team lead here at Flowgear, as well as work with a lot of our partners, such as Allied Cloud Solutions. Also on the call today is one of my integration engineers, Matt Baldner. As we get into the demo portion of today's call, Matt's going to be the one taking us through that process. But all in all, thank you everybody for taking the time to sit in on this meeting as well as watch the recording. As far as an agenda goes today, really kind of before we get into the core of what we wanted to accomplish today and showcasing Flowgear's new connector between NetSuite and Razor's Edge, wanted to highlight a few aspects of what we wanted to go over today. First and foremost, in working alongside Jeff and the Allied Cloud team, just kind of wanted to highlight our partnership with Allied Cloud and what we're looking to accomplish today. And then as well as kind of go through the high-level overview of what is Flowgear, what do we do, the market fit, a quick glance at our pricing model, given it is quite unique, run through some of our unique pre-sales tools like our proof of concept that really highlight a lot of the core functionalities that Flowgear has to offer. And then from there, really want to get into the core bulk of what we wanted to accomplish today and show off that new connector between Razor's Edge and NetSuite. So we have a live demonstration prepared today that Matt's going to be running through when the time comes. So first and foremost, definitely want to say thank you to Jeff and the Allied Cloud team for helping us get this set up, as well as kind of broadening the audience of who's going to watch this recording, as well as joined in the call today. Flowgear, we have partnered alongside Allied Cloud Solutions as they provide services in the NetSuite ecosystem and things like integration are needed. Flowgear has been the trusted partner in that aspect. If you go to Flowgear's website, you'll of course see the highlight around our partnership with Allied Cloud and vice versa on their website. But again, very much grateful for the partnership we have alongside their team in providing our integration services in the NetSuite ecosystem. Kind of hopping into things from a direct Flowgear perspective here, really want to jump into the Flowgear concept around our integration and automation platform and what we're looking to accomplish. As I'm sure most of you have seen, with the advent of cloud, AI, e-commerce, and complex supply chains, companies have truly become heavily dependent on an increasing array of applications, systems, services to really operate efficiently and grow their businesses. But one thing we've noticed is that sharing data between those technologies is still one of the largest challenges that exist. While there has been a big shift in many companies' attitudes toward the use of systems and technologies, this has truly moved over from a more of a hand-coded solution to the best-of-breed SaaS type technologies. Historically, we've noticed that if a company wanted to bring technology into their business, they would commission software developers to build a bespoke solution for them, as everyone believed that their business was completely unique. Today, companies would rather license out the best of breed applications. For example, if you need an ERP system, you're going to contact NetSuite. If you need a nonprofit system, you're going to contact Blackbaud, specifically Razor's Edge for the donor management piece. For CRM system, maybe something like Salesforce or HubSpot. For an e-commerce platform, Shopify, and so on. But truly, the only missing piece of this whole puzzle in bringing in these applications is how do we get these systems to talk to each other in real time? And that is where the integration component comes in. So what is Flowgear? With whom do we compete? And how do we differentiate in the market? Flowgear's middleware platform enables businesses of all sizes to shed the workload and complexity of app-to-app integration quickly and affordably. What our platform allows companies is to, without writing any code or low code, if that's the preference, to integrate with any application, service, API, database, you name it. So whether you are trying to integrate your internal systems or upstream to your suppliers or downstream to your customers, you truly can accomplish all of this through the Flowgear platform. How this has been achieved is through our large ecosystem of what we call pre-built application connectors, as well as our technology connectors, which truly provide instant integration to hundreds of SaaS and on-prem applications, as well as reusable workflows and APIs. We market ourselves as having over 300 pre-built application connectors covering all your mainstream CRMs, ERPs, e-commerce, nonprofit systems, financial systems, you name it, types of technologies. While NetSuite has been one of our core connectors for many years, today we want to highlight one of the newest connectors that we have, our Blackbaud Razor's Edge NXT connector. These two connectors allow for a seamless yet customizable integration between these two applications. Overall, what these application connectors are designed to do is abstract away the complexities of connecting to and working with a third-party application or API, and then to visually surface only the relevant functionality, objects, and fields that are available within that application's API. Also did want to note that we are consistently growing this ecosystem on a daily basis. However, while these application connectors serve their purpose and are great, to make ourselves extremely versatile, we are not fully restricted to working with these application connectors. And what I mean by that is when an application connector is not available, we have what we call generic technology connectors that are used to integrate to any technology that has an API that's accessible, some type of SDK we can call into. It can be a database, a website, some type of file system. Virtually, as long as there's a means and a way to push and pull data through those generic technology connectors, Flowgear can ultimately tap in and work with those technologies. Just allows us to be as versatile as possible as far as what we can and cannot work with. So then once you've made these connections into these systems, the idea is once, again, which can include both cloud-based and on-prem systems, is to really visually build out workflows to pass data between these systems to automate a process or fulfill a transaction across internal customer or supplier systems. This is where the true value of Flowgear is derived. The platform gives your clients a blank canvas to build a powerful rules engine to determine how, when, and in what context their data should be used to automate processes and truly solve real world business objectives that will either increase revenue, reduce costs, or create a significant competitive advantage in their industry. To date, what we've noticed in our space is that iPaaS has almost exclusively only been available to your very large US enterprise companies, and that has really been a function of the price of what this tool has to offer. We've noticed a lot of the prices range between 30,000 to 120,000, as seen with a lot of our competitors in these spaces like the Celigos, Boomies, MuleSofts, Jitterbits, SnapLogics, etc. Really, how Flowgear has managed to differentiate ourselves is by focusing on this massively underserved US mid-market, where companies that don't want tools or to use hand coding, but also haven't been able to afford an iPaaS caliber type solution. What Flowgear has managed to do is we're the only iPaaS company to take this enterprise technology and make it affordable to the mid-market at a price point that is both scalable and affordable. So kind of to give some color around that, if you look at Flowgear's pricing here on the screen, we have four fixed price plans. Our entry level plan is our base plan at 1,499 a month, scaling to our enterprise plan, which is 7,999 per month. This is a fixed price per month on a 12-month contract and billed annually in advance. In each one of these plans, you'll get to use all of Flowgear's connectors. There are no variable costs associated with Flowgear, so there's no consumption cost per connector, task, or transaction, as seen with some of our other iPaaS vendors. Again, wanted to have this pricing model to not only be a differentiating factor in the iPaaS ecosystem, but also allow companies to grow within our pricing model and scale their companies. One of the kind of last things I wanted to highlight here before we really hopped into the demo is really the silver bullet for Flowgear's success. And this is that idea of a complementary proof of concepts. Proof of concepts are kept at a high level and generally serve the purpose of demonstrating how seamlessly and quickly Flowgear can integrate into the clients and third-party systems, ultimately confirming the functionality as far as what we offer in our pre-sales process. What a proof of concept generally includes is one or two integration or automation use cases, generally where we ID a problem or a typical requirement from an integration component. Then we put together a high-level spec. There's really no workshopping required in that process. However, Flowgear will make a few assumptions as far as where necessary to kind of complete that integration component. All we really require from the client is the access to test or sandbox environment and possibly some sample data. There are plenty of technologies out there where we have our own sandboxes, so we can make that process a bit more seamless and use our own if that happens to be capable. The turnaround time for these is approximately 10 days once access is granted into these technologies. 10 days is a bit on the high level, but we just kind of say that that's going to be the absolute maximum it would take us to build out these proof of concepts. Generally, that takes significantly less time. And then as far as the deliverable goes, it truly is a high-level design with an effective integration solution and various workflows that is going to confirm the functionality that we promised as far as how our integration platform does work. When it comes to the benefit side of these proof of concepts, we've really seen three significant kind of additional commercial benefits from this process. One, it simply creates confidence. Clients see the solution working not just in theory, but within their own environment as well. Two, once the client can see what Flowgear can do for them, the number of use cases increases substantially. I definitely like to put a lot of emphasis on when it comes to truly understanding the power of an integration platform. I don't think it can be truly understood until you actually see it live in action, and that's what this proof of concept accomplishes. And then lastly, it creates momentum and has reduced the sales cycle time frame by more than half. Once we kind of get this process in motion and some effort from the client side of things to get us sandbox access, get these use cases in motion, it really just propels us into the next steps. And then, overall speaking, it definitely provides a significant competitive advantage to our competitors in this space. For any company out there that's doing let's call it some version of a competitive evaluation of Flowgear versus any of our competitors, the proof of concept is the easiest tool to kind of bring to light, okay, Flowgear can actually do what they're saying and kind of accomplish all of our promises as far as what we offered in the pre-sales process. One common question we'll get when it comes to the time of a proof of concept is who is responsible for building the proof of concept. There's two options when it comes to this. One, Flowgear, we do have a POC division internally where we can build it for the client and jointly present it back to them. Two, in working alongside our partners like Allied Cloud, Allied Cloud has some of their professionals that are certified in Flowgear, and they can build these proof of concepts and provide them back as well. Really what we want to do as next steps here is a big portion of today's presentation is to truly highlight not only our platform and our overall functionality, but particularly our capabilities in integrating Razor's Edge and NetSuite. We understand this has been a pain point in the past and something that hasn't been easily accomplishable. However, Flowgear has kind of turned that upside down and made this not only a very seamless integration as far as being able to create and implement, but two, a very customizable integration as well. So what I want to do now is kick it over to Matt, who is going to present a bit of a high-level overview of the platform from a technology perspective, but then more importantly, get into an actual integration between these two technologies.
Perfect. Thank you, Logan. I'll share my screen here. And yeah, like Logan said, we'll start out going through kind of a high-level overview of the platform, run through the different kind of aspects of the platform as well as the tooling. And then we'll actually get into a demo between Razor's Edge and NetSuite where we'll pass over donors from Razor's Edge over to NetSuite. So this is the screen you will be greeted with when you log into the platform, where anyone who needs to work on the platform, they can obviously log in with role-based access to give them access to different parts of the system. This could be anything from running reports, even developing and publishing workflows. So role-based access is basically going to determine what you can and can't do within your tenant. Also, at the end of the day, regardless of which deployment model you choose of Flowgear, your tenant will be deployed against its own individual VM, which is going to provide the maximum level of security and separation for your organization, and also eliminate the noisy neighbor effect we see with some multi-tenant solutions out there. So what I'm going to do is run down the left-hand side here, kind of an overview. The first section is going to be workflows. This is where we're actually going to be developing our integrations. Typically, we're extracting data out of a source and moving that data over to a target system. We also have connections here. Connections are going to be where you will specify your credentials to authenticate with that particular system or application. We'll kind of dive into the connection details here momentarily. Here we have drop points. Drop point is a lightweight service that you install on-prem, which is going to open up a persistent outbound connection to the primary Flowgear environment. And that's essentially going to facilitate the flow of data between the drop point and your tenant. So essentially means you can get data from on-prem systems without exposing it to the wider internet. When that data is in transit between that on-prem system or the drop point and the Flowgear tenant, that data will be encrypted and compressed. Here we have workflow logs. You can kind of think of workflow logs as an audit measure for your tenant. You can look at what your tenant's doing in terms of specific workflows here, nodes or triggers, which we'll get into here in a moment, as well as a date range. It is important to note that you are able to redact certain information from these logs, as you can see on the screen here, or you can choose to not log any information at all, depending on your security preferences. And lastly, I will go to the settings pane. Settings is typically where a site admin may hang out. They can do things like restart the platform, check the health of the platform. If we drill into the clusters pane here, you can look at what your tenant's doing in terms of CPU and memory usage, workflow activations, platform logs, things like that. So from there, we will go ahead and get into kind of a light demo before we get to our pre-built demo here. So I'll just go ahead and create a new workflow here by clicking the new workflow button, and we'll name this test workflow. This is where you'll be greeted with the Flowgear design canvas. The purpose of the canvas is to facilitate a low to no code drag and drop design process. And kind of how we emphasize that dragging and dropping is you can see these plus icons on the back of the screen here. So if we drill into one of those plus icons, this is going to bring up our selection of nodes. And a node is just a design element dropped on the canvas that's going to facilitate a particular integration process. So it's doing something for us in an integration. And depending on what that node does, we've separated them out into 4 categories. The first one's going to be a connector. A connector will expose 100% of the vendor's API functionality through something we call samples. And samples are just going to allow you to pick the particular action you'd like to perform against that system's API. Logan mentioned we have over 250, 300 branded connectors for your mainstream CRM, ERP, e-commerce, financial systems, etc. But what's made us extremely versatile is the use of our generic technology connectors. So if we don't have a branded connector for the specific application you're using, we can use things like a REST request for a REST-backed API, and the same thing on the SOAP side. Our next category of nodes is going to be triggers, and triggers are going to dictate how a workflow is invoked or how that thread of data is being passed from our source system to our target. A ton of different flexibility and how a workflow is invoked in Flowgear. We have things like timers if you need something to run every 5-10 minutes. Day schedulers, week schedulers, webhook functionality. We can watch for a file to be landed on an FTP server, email to be landed in an inbox. The next category is going to be processors, and processors are going to act on data and memory with the intent to transform that data and prep it for the next stage of the workflow. So essentially, we're extracting data out of our source, and that data needs to be transformed in some form or fashion so that our target system can ingest that data. That's where processors are going to come into play. And lastly is going to be flow controls. And flow controls are going to allow you to write expressions on the canvas, and those expressions will enable conditional branching on the workflow. That conditional branching will facilitate things like business logic, supporting logic, error handling. If we're processing 100 transactions from our source to our target, and one of those transactions happens to fail, how do we want to handle that failure? We can build reports that are then emailed out to operations teams, tech teams within the platform, as well as perform retry mechanisms where necessary. So now that we got the tooling out of the way, what we want to do is show you a little bit kind of high level on the Razor's Edge connector itself. So I'll come in here and bring up our Blackbaud Razor's Edge NXT connector here. We'll go ahead and bring up the quick map here in the middle, which is our flagship transformation tool over at Flowgear, and then NetSuite on the back end of this. So the first thing we're going to need to do on both of these connectors is establish our connection. I have a pre-configured connection for the purposes of this demo, but if you're creating a connection for the first time, you'd hit this plus button here. I'll drill into these connection details quickly. And for our branded connectors, these credentials will be specific to that system or application. So in Razor's Edge case, you'll see things like a client ID, client secret. And then what you're actually able to do is enter in different credentials per environment. So you can see here in our test environment, we have our credentials entered in here. If we move over to production, you'll see they're empty. So you're able to add in credentials per environment and not have to go back in and reinsert those once you promote a workflow from a lower environment up to production. These environments are also customizable. So in-house, if an organization has a dev, test, UAT, and production environments, you're able to add or subtract environments within your tenant to match what you have in-house. So once we're happy with our credentials here, we can go ahead and test this connection up here at the top by pressing the test button. And we'll see that our connection is successful here. We'll do the same thing on the target side, on the NetSuite side. So we'll go ahead and pick our pre-configured connection here. We can drill into those details and see credentials that are specific to NetSuite in this case. Now that our connections are established, we obviously need to choose which action we want to perform against these systems. Again, that's through something we call samples here at Flowgear. So if you hit this drop-down button, select Choose Sample. This is going to bring up all the different actions we could take against Razor's Edge's API. So you can see here we have over 330 different actions we can take with these samples. And just to keep this simple here, we'll go ahead and pick a constituent. And once I select that particular sample, we'll see that it brings up a custom property on the bottom of the node where then we can actually filter on a specific constituent to pull. In this case, we'll just pick 280. Here we can actually run this node in isolation to one, confirm our connection is successful, and two, confirm we're pulling the correct data for this integration. So you can hit the drop down, select run this node. And then down here in the activity log on the Razor's Edge NXT side, we'll see we get a response back from Razor's Edge in the form of a constituent in this case. So our source is set up fully in this case. Now we obviously need to set up our target for what action we want to perform against NetSuite. Again, same thing here. We'll hit the drop down, select Choose Sample. And in this case, we want to add a customer. When I select that sample, a couple different things are going to happen on this node. Our operation is going to change to add, record type of customer. And then this is actually going to provide us with a sample payload of what NetSuite is going to expect when we pass that type of record to it. How we map that data between the systems of what we pull out of Razor's Edge and what NetSuite expects when we pass that kind of record to it. Again, is through this quick map tool, flagship transformation tool. So what we'll do is hook up the response to the source of the quick map and then the result of the quick map to the request of our NetSuite. And if I select change view, this is going to bring up a source data tree on our left of the data we pulled out of Razor's Edge, and a target data tree on our right, which is what NetSuite's going to expect when we pass that kind of record to it. So how we map the data within Flowgear is going to be dragging and dropping from our source to our target. Simple as pulling this from left to right. As I pull that data or pull this from our source to our target, we'll see it's actually going to build a real-time preview over here on the right-hand side of what we're building. So it takes a lot of that manual effort out, especially when you're mapping 30, 40, 50 fields, and you can see what you're building in real time. To kind of take this data mapping to the next level, we have what we call map expressions here. These are based on Excel functions. So anything you can do in Excel, count, sum, lookup, if statements, replacing values, text manipulation, date manipulation can all be taken care of within these map expressions themselves. And we'll look at some examples of that in the other workflow. Perfect. So we'll go ahead and go over to our pre-built out workflow here between Razor's Edge and NetSuite. Again, we're going to be passing donors. It's a pretty high level example, basic ETL process in a real world scenario. We would have a lot more error handling, embedded logic, things like that. But just for the webinar, wanted to keep this simple. So from here, essentially what I'm going to do is just kind of run through what each node is doing, why it's there, and then we'll go ahead and run this and look at the results over in NetSuite. So our first step here, much like we showcased in the other workflow, is we'll go ahead and grab a donor out of Razor's Edge here. And we'll see the response back from Razor's Edge in the form of a constituent. Here, we're actually going to iterate over each one of these. So in a production scenario, we obviously wouldn't be pulling one record. We'd be pulling a bunch based on the trigger you choose, whether that's daily or time-based. So we're actually going to iterate through each one of these constituents to capture them at a record level. Here, this is called key values, and I'm going to jump ahead to the back of this workflow, but essentially as we process a constituent from Razor's Edge as a customer in NetSuite, we're actually going to tag these on the back end of the workflow based on essentially an if statement or a 200 response back from NetSuite when we create that customer. And here we'll actually tag the key, which would be the constituent ID in this case, bumped up against the value, which would be the customer ID in NetSuite. Once we tag those, we'll actually be able to reference that when we run this workflow again. So based on a key, in this case, the constituent ID, if we have found this constituent ID before, aka we've already processed this over to NetSuite as a customer, we're not going to do anything with it. We're going to ignore that particular record. And if it's missing, we'll continue on with the workflow. This will prevent duplicates from going over to your target system. We're then going to map the data from Razor's Edge over to what NetSuite's going to expect when we create a customer on that side. Again, this is just what we looked at in the other workflow. It's a little bit more involved here. Again, so we're dragging and dropping our fields from Razor's Edge over to NetSuite. And then we're also showcasing some of our mapping expressions here based on text manipulation, if statements, things like that, as well as hard coding where necessary. And we can see we have our final payload over here on the right-hand side. From there, we'll go ahead and push that mapped payload over to NetSuite in the form of adding a customer. And this is where we're going to go ahead and check if that particular constituent was successfully created over to NetSuite as a customer. So this, you can kind of think of this as an if statement. If we received a 200 response again, we'll go ahead and tag that as a success with our constituent ID bumped up against our customer ID in NetSuite. And on the failure side, we'll actually be able to reference the constituent ID from Razor's Edge, and then we'll emit the entire error message out of NetSuite. One good thing about error handling within Flowgear is based on failures, you can essentially retrieve transactions that might have failed in a given run. And then you could actually emit that into an Excel spreadsheet and have that automatically emailed out to a tech team and operations team, whoever might need to look into those errors. We could also perform retry mechanisms where appropriate. So from there, we'll go ahead and run this. Again, you can hit the run button up at the top here. And this is essentially, and down here in the activity log is going to show essentially what I just described. And we'll kind of go step by step here. So of course, we're going to go ahead and grab our constituent out of Razor's Edge. We'll iterate over those constituents, check if we processed this particular donor before based on the source system ID, 280 in this case. We'll then map that from what we got from Razor's Edge to what NetSuite's going to expect in the form of a customer. We'll then check if that was successful based on a 200 response essentially, and then we'll go ahead and tag that as a success. And you can see here we have our constituent ID as our key and our NetSuite customer ID as our value. So you always have reference of what records match between your source and your target system, especially where they might create internal IDs automatically within those systems. So here we can go over to Razor's Edge here. We're on our customer list. We'll go ahead and refresh this. And we'll see we have a newly created customer up here at the top, Robert Hernandez. We can obviously drill into this customer record. And we can see that we do have a newly created customer within NetSuite. Obviously added some comments here. But that is it from my side. I hope everyone liked the demo. Again, this was a high level kind of ETL pattern here. In a production scenario, you would have robust error handling, more enhanced logic, things like that. But yeah, that's it from my side. Logan, back over to you.
Perfect. As stated there, really just wanted to use that time to really kind of showcase, what the platform looks like as far as some of the functionality goes, give a bit of context around us being a no-code, low-code platform, but also having a wide variety of tools that make these integrations not only very successful, but very customizable as well. And hopefully, accomplish that today. That really concludes really what we wanted to be able to run through today. As you'll see, we have some just contact information here on the screen today. But outside of that, really what we wanted to accomplish was just really showcasing our functionality as far as a platform goes, especially the connection between Razor's Edge and NetSuite. If there are any other further questions, feel free to reach out at Jeff over at Allied Cloud or myself. And again, thank you very much for joining today.